Looking for a guaranteed way to create content that resonates with your audience? Start a podcast. Interview your ideal clients and let them choose the topic of the interview. Because if your ideal clients care about the topic, there's a good chance the rest of your audience will care about it too. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. This episode is sponsored by Directive Consulting, the B2B search marketing agency. Today, we're joined by Peter Nguyen. Peter is the founder and CEO of at&nbsp Group. He's won countless awards, including of every advertising and marketing agency. They have won the Gold American Business Award 2 years running. Peter, it is a pleasure to welcome you to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jonathan. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm excited. We were jamming on all these ideas before we started recording, and we were talking about the wins and losses you've experienced. I mean, I know you've got something like over 800 employees across 20 plus companies right now. I mean, you're just a wealth of information. But I think what we've landed on for today's topic is we're going to be talking about sort of what is the unique principle, the must-have DNA for every new company that someone starts. And I think it's going to be a very cool topic. But Peter, before we do get into that, maybe you can tell us just a little bit about yourself and what you and your team at at&nbsp Group are up to these days.
Sure. at&nbsp, we've been around for 5 years. I've been an entrepreneur for 17 years now. We're the leading digital marketing firm for direct-to-consumer products. And so we've generated over $1.5 billion in revenue for our clients in just the last 5 years alone. And, we have a full service of other services, not beyond just digital marketing. We have a full-blown logistics company that ships out up to 50,000+ products a day. We have a call center with 5 call centers, up to 500 seats, inbound customer support. We have a processing company. We have a chargeback management company with 200 people in India, and fast-growing company there. I have another company that's looking to go public sometime in the near future. Exposed too much about that, and I've launched over 50 or 60 different product lines in the last 17 years, all direct to consumer, all sold on the internet.
That's fantastic. So obviously, Peter, your resume is sort of beyond question. You have seen and experienced and grown across various industries. So one of the reasons that we did want to get you on the show today, and because of that experience, because you have started so many companies and you've seen a lot of trials and challenges, and you've seen what works, we want to talk about sort of, again, what are some of the unique principles, this must-have DNA for every new company that someone is starting. Peter, take it away. Where are we starting today?
All right. First, I would say foundation. Your partners. I'm a big believer in having partners in businesses. All my companies actually have at least a business partner. Sometimes I still own the majority of them. Sometimes we're 50-50. Sometimes I'm a minority investor and more passive. But your partners make up your entire blueprint and your DNA. And so for me, the way I look at partners is the similar way how I look at my life partner, my spouse. And there's 2 fundamental principles that I live by when choosing a partner. Number 1, do I trust that person? Just like my wife, so the kind of the sniff test is, if I were to die, would I trust that my partner would take care of my family? Like that level of trust. Because I would expect the same thing to happen with my spouse, right? And the second one would be, when I talk about my partner outside of them, like to other people, Do I glow? Am I excited? Can I just speak so highly about them? Like, do they have that it factor about them that's so incredible, right? Just like I would with myself. And those are the two factors I look for. I'm looking for 10 out of 10s. I don't settle for 5 out of 10s or even 7 out of 10s. I look for 10 out of 10 people, but even before picking, just good people or good partners, right? The first thing I look at is, depending on what the company is, like what's the DNA of the company. So like if it's a tech company, what I look for is, okay, what are the key 4 or 5 things that we as a company need to be above the pack on? Like, what do we need to like do better than the average or the rest of the? And so for instance, if a tech company, I probably want a good CTO or like a just insanely smart 10 out of 10 guy who's a developer who has this unique way of doing things and above everyone else. He's part of that versus maybe less of that in a logistics company, right? Where tech is probably not as needed unless you're doing some new type of tech with logistics, right?
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't need like a financial, accountant necessarily as a partner. I would hire them as an executive, right? Because and people make that mistake between when do you hire an executive and what do you have for partners. Partners, I look for unique attributes and they have unique skill sets or values that company needs more than just a paid employee, right? And so I look at the 4 or 5 core things that company needs to be the best at, and then I look for partners who can fill that, be the best in those things. And what value do I bring? I mean, I better bring some value too, or I don't deserve to be a partner, right? And sometimes for me, it's my strategic planning. Sometimes it's obviously my marketing and distribution, which I know a thing or two about. Sometimes it's my resources and funding. And sometimes it's all of the above, right? So I know the value I bring. My leadership style as well brings a different culture, my tenacity in motivating companies, and my strategic planning, right? And my connections is also another value I bring because I have a huge Rolodex of people and resources, right? And so I know what I bring. What do the other people bring that's unique that I can't do myself?
Yeah.
Because if you have now 2 partners who are too much exactly alike, you don't want that either. And then the other thing is like in a partner, I look for like who are solid managers. I've made the mistake too many times where there's just an amazing entrepreneur, and sometimes that entrepreneur makes for a great partner and then makes for a lousy executive later on if and when you do grow the company. So I've had to many times, even more recently, some of my fastest growing companies, that same partner who helped me take it from 0 to $50 million, I needed to buy him out or get him out in order to bring a real executive, a real manager in once we grew to a certain size to help grow it, 50 million and above, and know that ahead of time. So for me, I'm looking for, I made the same mistakes where someone who can, and it's rare to find both. It is honestly rare to find in any entrepreneur the same tenacity as a partner to grow a company and to work 24 hours, 24/7, and to have that eat, sleep, and breathe this company, right? And at the same time, have the management skills, right? To grow a good culture as well. So that's something I look for.
Yeah.
That's the first part of the DNA. And then I would say, from a strategic perspective, I always try and look for build a plan. And it's like cliche, a unique selling position or something like that. But here's actually a huge tip that I do, almost with all my companies. I say, who's my end customer, right? And I give the same advice to, if I'm giving dating advice. We're using a lot of relationship things because it works the same way with people. Because at the end of the day, your clients, or even if it's a B2B, they're people at the end of the day, right? So like for me, if I were to give advice to a guy or a girl who's saying he's looking for their dream partner, their soulmate, right? I'll give the same advice. I said, first off, so who is your dream soulmate, right? And they'll say, well, Jessica Alba or some other like that, or some other one, right? Right? And I said, okay, that's great. And they'll describe all these characteristics. But when I say that, actually, most people don't even know. Like majority of the people will say, I have no idea. So like literally, if your dream woman walks through that door, you wouldn't even know that that was her. First off, right? So just know who your dream person is first. But let's say now you figured it out, who your dream person is. Then this is where most people make this mistake. Then they're like, okay, great, Jessica Alba's your dream person, right? And then so now your dream person is this, and then now ask this question. Step 2 is, who's his or her dream person, dream soulmate, dream partner? Oh, huh. But do you fit that, right? Because if it's not you, you have no shot. Sorry, right? So then the second step is, who's their dream person? And step 3 is, if that's not you, that's who you should aspire to be. Those are the qualities you should be in order to deserve that dream soulmate, right? That dream partner.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, it's very interesting to turn that back on yourself, taking a look at, I'm so focused on trying to find what I want, but am I, am I fitting that mold for that person? That's a really interesting perspective.
And I realized that when I was like 11 years old, and I realized I was very far from deserving anyone like that. And so I spent literally 15 years of my life, upping, and it wasn't about the money side. Like, I met my wife before I had all of this, and my wife, I have the dream wife because I worked on all the more important things that she's looking for. So the moment my wife met me, we talked on the phone, not even in person, she literally said, he's the one. The first phone call. Because when you know you're it, when you have it all that they're looking for, they know it too.
Yeah.
Right. And I use this example because when in business, I use the same philosophy, which means, who's your dream customer? I'm talking about the best of the best customer. At Exchange, we didn't want to have literally 1,000 clients. No, we just wanted 100 of the biggest ones, right? We wanted it to be the Black American Express card of the industry, right? Because all my competitors had maybe thousands or tens of thousands, and was doing 5 sales or 2 sales or 0 sales or 10 sales a day with all their clients. And that's just too much work. And they had, 100 or 200 employees and blah, 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 blah. Like, we did our first $100 million with 7 employees, right? But I said, who is my dream client? And then I said, how can we be their dream service provider, their dream company that they want to? What is the market missing? And we became exactly that. And we do this for every one of our companies.
Today's growth story is about an enterprise all-flash storage hardware vendor serving 20% of Fortune 100 companies. But here's the issue. They were struggling to engage with prospects across different territories. With a goal of growing their customer base, this hardware vendor decided to work with a partner on high-impact direct mail delivered to over 800 profiled leads across the UK, France, South Africa, Denmark, Sweden, and Finland. This resulted in a 54.4% increase in total contract value. Wow. So who is the partner that delivered these results with direct mail? MRP Prolytics. MRP Prolytics is an insights-powered account-based marketing platform with streaming predictive analytics baked into its core. Integrating multi-channel ABM execution on these insights, MRP Prolytics triggers display, email, direct mail, and global inside sales in real time, helping the largest marketing departments in the world deliver the right message to their customers at just the right time. So could MRP Prolytics work for you too? There's a real good chance it could. Find out by visiting mrpfd.com or click the link in the episode description of this interview. All right, let's get back to the show.
Well, and I just, I love that you are able to think so almost objectively, critically about, how to match. And then, like you said, you've drawn a lot of parallels between the principles that have guided you in your own life, that have guided you in your personal relationships, to the principles that have guided you in business and in those business relationships. So, it's a very unique perspective, and I think probably takes a lot of, it takes takes a lot of confidence to take a look at yourself and say, this is, I'm not the right match. This is who I want to match with, but I'm not the right match. What can I do? And you've like flipped that a little bit so that you are having to grow and change and adapt yourself instead of just complaining, well, why haven't I found my match? Why haven't I found my partner? So I think that's a brilliant perspective. Peter, one of the things, you've talked a lot about finding the perfect partner, how that relationship can maybe change and evolve. But I know also another part of sort of your success and what drives you, and something that you, I think, bake into the DNA of these companies, is you also care for your people. And so one of the things you had talked about was certainly not just having a cool culture, but you actually care for the people, and you've cared for them in some unique ways. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. This is something I've been preaching and speaking about within my company for well over a year now. Once I was able to kind of really understand what it is, because I kept getting asked or interviewed people like, what is it? And then it's this idea, and I'm going to trademark this because I use it so often, but it's caring with a capital C. And everyone in my company knows what I mean by that. And caring with a capital C. And let me give you an example of what I mean by that. If you take the world's greatest people on the planet, whether it be Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Jesus, Buddha, whatever you want to call, right? Even just great, right? The people that we all love and respected who've changed the world. What do they all have in common? And it's not how, handsome they were. It's not how wealthy they were. It wasn't how, what ethnicity they were, or what, how even charismatic they were, right? Because they all were different personalities. They came from different times, right? Walks of life. But they all cared with a capital C. That's the one thing that stood out from all of them, all the rest of the human beings of their time. They cared with a capital C. And what I mean by that is like care is different than love. We talk about love too often. Love, I can say I love my mom, and if my mom is in the hospital, I can send her love, but caring is actually coming and visiting her, right? Caring is the action, not just the feeling, right? And caring is the doing and the being, and it's a culture that we've learned to do, both as partners, executives, whether they're managers, or within each other. And we go above and beyond. Even that word care, right? Like the millennials have this carefree attitude. I was like, you don't want to have a carefree attitude. You want to have more care, right? You don't want to be careless. What's the exact opposite? You want to be more careful. Because people who care with a capital C pay attention to the details, right? All the little things that make them great. Care with a capital C is a level of excellence that matters. And it's doing things that matter, right? And there's purpose behind it all. And in everything, and every morning I wake up, there's purpose behind that. And it's not, as an entrepreneur, unlike most entrepreneurs, it's not about the money, because I've never, ever been driven about the money. The money is just an energy, a resource back into something of more important, of a bigger legacy that I want to leave on this planet. And when we care about I care about my partners the same way. I care about my executives in the same way. I care about all my team members the exact same way. And this is we've created a culture where everyone gets that, And so, I can tell you about this cool activity that we do, or how we're a results-oriented work environment, or how we have this intercompany bowling event, or what, all of that stuff. None of that stuff per se matters. You make it yourself. But when people know, it's like that simple expression: people don't care what you know until they know that you care, right? And so, and I live and eat and breathe that. And when you go above and beyond what the just checkbox that most people in corporations do, and do things different, do things that matter, do things that are truly fun, and and we have a culture that's not about surviving. Like, what's effed up about corporate America, and I actually hate it, because I've hired enough executives from big corporations who come in our culture, and they bring that corporate America crap into our culture, and I literally either have to let them go or have to have their come to Jesus moment. It's like, no, you can't do that. Like, that's just not what we built. Like, literally.
Right.
And it's because corporate America, especially the big companies, guess what they're doing? They're using fear and survival as a mechanism to motivate. And that's the wrong, there's one, because fear is the second strongest emotion. So that's a big driver that most corporate America drives them on. It's better, it's better to use fear than, laziness or all the other emotions, sure. But there's only one emotion that's greater, which is love. And that culture, instead of surviving, it's thriving. Instead, because if you're in survival mode the whole time, your body, the culture that everyone has, even when you pull out all the fires and there's no more bears, because fear is created there, the only time we should be using fear as a human being is if there's freaking a bear in the room and you need to freaking survive. That's what that there is there for. Other than that, but let's just say you're firefighting the whole time and there's no more bears. Well, and you're still in that state of culture, you can't, you're still going to constantly be in that frame, which is a lower vibrational frame. Where, however, thriving is easier. It's putting your feet up and saying, we're going to play this game to win. It's high-fiving instead of pointing fingers. And that's the culture that we have, and we lead by example. And a big thing that I mentioned, or that I didn't mention yet, is in the beginning, when you have your partners and your first initial core team, I'm a big, firm believer. And I talk about care with capital C, and I talk about the second thing, which is oneness. I'm a firm believer that we as a company need to be one. And the moment a partner or a manager isn't one, and I see like them acting like grade school kids and arguing and bickering, and they're not on the same page, I'm like the oneness police. If anything I do half of the time, it's like being the oneness police. I'm like, you guys better get along. Or something, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, because we need to be on the same page. Do you have that commitment? Are we, can we be on the same page? Can we look beyond that? Because a big thing that we do and that I preach as well is leave your ego out the door. Like, we're in this, when you're coming in the office and you're walking through this door, and it's not even just walking through the door. We don't even call it work-life balance. We talk about work-life integration in our companies, right? And whether it's in the door or not, we need to act as one. And if you don't have that oneness, someone's got to go. Yeah. Because companies cannot be built unless they're all one. And the people are on the same page, and you have one clear vision, and you have one clear goal, and you work as a team as one. And that's an important part of our culture, right? And that's something that I preach and that I see. And it's a thriving culture, not a surviving culture. It's of love. And sometimes love, and it's not like we're seeing kumbaya all the time. Because when stuff happens, which it does in the business world, sometimes tough love needs to happen. Sometimes you need to speak truth to them, even though it's a harder thing to do than just ignore it. And that's part of the tough love and care with a capital C. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Peter, I mean, this has been definitely, some heavy but fantastic content. When we're talking about, the DNA of a new company, obviously that's going to be a heavy subject, but, we've covered a myriad of topics, choosing the right partners, how that evolves, caring for your people, caring, of course, with a capital C. And this is all such fantastic information. Obviously, you've been through this time and time and time again. You've seen so much. You've seen what works. You've seen what doesn't. We even touched a little bit there on this idea of legacy, which is fantastic. One of the things we always love to talk about on the show. So, Peter, if anyone listening, they're interested in finding out more about what we've been talking about today, they want to connect with you, they want to find out about Ad Exchange. What's the best way for them to go about doing that? Sure. LinkedIn is probably the best one. I don't check it often, but when I do, I will hit you up. My handle in LinkedIn is Peter Q, my middle initial, and my last name, Nguyen. Peter Q, Nguyen.
Fantastic. And of course, we'll make sure the link is right there in the show notes. So if anyone wants to reach out, they'll be able to do it. Peter, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a tremendous pleasure getting to interview you today.
Awesome. Thanks again, Jonathan.
There are lots of ways to build a community, and we've chosen to build the B2B growth community through this podcast. But because of the way podcasts work, it's really hard to engage with our listeners. And without engagement, it's tough to build a great community. So here's what we've decided to do. We're organizing small dinners across the country with our listeners and guests. No sales pitches, no agenda, just great conversations with like-minded people. We'll talk business, we'll talk family, we'll talk goals and dreams. We'll build friendships. So if you'd like to be a part of a B2B growth dinner in a city near you, go to b2bgrowthdinners.com. That's b2bgrowthdinners.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.